If you're experiencing anxiety and you're dealing with intrusive thoughts, if you're getting physical symptoms, if you're getting feelings of unreality, the weird emotions, you might be wondering, is this a disorder and is this something you're gonna have to deal with for the rest of your life? This was one of my biggest fears when I was struggling with anxiety. I was afraid of what happens if this disorder becomes an identity of mine, or what if this disorder becomes a handicap and I can't live my life fully? And it was one of the biggest fears I had. And when I would Google search online and when I would find medical communities, it would always make it seem like it was some sort of identity or something that you're just stuck with. Maybe they were saying it was a chemical imbalance, or maybe it was saying it's a genetic thing and there's nothing you can do. But in this video, I'm going to be really describing something that I feel is a little bit contentious, but I feel, meeting people that have recovered around the world, they inherently know this, but they're a little bit afraid to say this out loud because sometimes when something is so mainstream, there can be a lot of backlash. But the purpose of this channel is to tell you the truth. And it's really defining this idea of, is anxiety a true disorder? I'm going to give you my takes on it and really how this could help you on your recovery journey. So with that said, let's get it started. So I remember going to doctors and they were saying it's just anxiety, it's just anxiety. And I said, okay, cool, but what can I do to make this go away? And every time I would say that, they would give me a different answer. They would say, well, there's nothing you can really do to make this go away. Or they would say, hey, you can do like meds and you can try therapy. Or they would just say, hey, just like stress out less. But whatever they would say, it would almost make it sound like it was a coping mechanism. And I was just saying, okay, I'm not interested in coping with this. I want to make this go away. I'm not interested in a Band-Aid solution. I've like lived with myself my whole life. I've never experienced this before. Are you telling me there's nothing I can do to overcome this? And over time, what happened is that it really slowed down my recovery journey because my biggest fear is this an identity? Is this just something I'm always going to have to manage or cope with? Now, let me preface by saying with the scientific community, I believe they're doing some of the best work out there. I personally feel doctors are doing everything they can to save other people's lives. It's almost like they're trying to eliminate one fire from another, and they're just doing everything they can to save people's lives. And for that, it's incredibly noble. And I feel like a lot of the advances we've had in modern society has a lot to do with the breakthroughs that's happened in the medical world and the scientific community. So I will say first and foremost, I am not an absolutist. I don't think doctors are evil or anything like that. In fact, I feel like doctors are put under tremendous pressure with the amount of resources they have, with the amount of time that they have, and really focus on helping people, just saving their lives. And I truly believe that they do this because they care as well. I truly believe that they're in this field because they really want to help people save their lives and improve quality of life. But that being said, I do feel the scientific community has anxiety totally wrong. And what I'm going to do is post a link down below to actually a Forbes article that really challenges this notion of anxiety being a mental disorder. The link is going to be down below. And the basic premise of the article goes like this. Behavioral anthropologists submit very compelling evidence to the scientific community to help them really redefine what a disorder is. And with the evidence they show, there's a lot of compelling evidence to suggest that anxiety isn't just a chemical imbalance. And they bring up three really good points. And the first point is that they try to treat anxiety through the medical model. And you might have experienced this as you're going through the recovery journey, right? If you're struggling with anxiety, you go through this medical model where you go to the doctor getting everything ruled out and they say it's just anxiety. But then when it's like, okay, what do I do to get this fixed? They're very limited in their approach. And a big reason for that is because anxiety is kind of defined under this medical model. Now, what these behavioral anthropologists say is, wait, I don't think anxiety has anything to do with medical at all. And the first reason for that is the scientific community has had a very difficult time showcasing that anxiety is something that's inherited. And second, despite widespread uses of antidepressants, it's actually shown that antidepressants aren't very useful when it comes to treating anxiety. And the way they look at this is that they look at studies from 1990 to 2010, and they look at the global prevalence of anxiety disorders. And what they show is even with the widespread use of antidepressants, the global prevalence has stayed around the same, which is around 4%. And the other reason why they show that this isn't a medical issue is because time and time again, they show that antidepressants don't do any better than placebos. And the third point they make is that not only is this not a medical issue, but this is an environmental issue. And the way they look at it is they look at the worldwide spread of anxiety disorders and compare it to countries where there's a lot of war or a lot of conflict-ridden areas. So anyone struggling with anxiety around the world is about 1 in 14. But in places where there's conflict, they're actually showing it's 1 in 5. Now, the conclusion that these behavioral anthropologists are saying is that, look, anxiety has nothing to do with the chemical imbalance, but it's a natural response to adversity. And I can really relate to that. When I fell into the cycle, it started off as a panic attack. Now, before that panic attack, I was dealing with some stressors. And they were natural, healthy stressors, but I was young and I was learning how to get my footing down, and what happened was that it just got a little bit overwhelming. And what happened was that it led me to a panic attack, and I never experienced a panic attack. And then what happened naturally is because I didn't know it was a panic attack and I knew it could come at any point, my nervous system became sensitized. My nervous system said, hey, look, there was a threat before. We don't know what it is, but we want to stay on high alert. So if you notice, my anxiety was a natural response to stress. And the reason why my anxiety was still alive is because I didn't know what was happening. I thought there was something physically wrong with me, or I thought I was going crazy, or I thought something terrible was going on. And so when I really didn't know what was happening, naturally my anxiety was going to stay alive. And because it was staying alive, I started experiencing intense physical symptoms. I was getting intrusive thoughts. I was getting dissociation. And all those things scared me. And because I didn't know what that was, is that I was getting these symptoms. They were scaring me because I thought worst case scenario. And what that did was that it kept my anxiety alive. Now, here's the ironic thing. Once I was able to focus on the right steps, I focused on recovery, all the symptoms went away. In fact, once I was better, and I was better for a while, I didn't fit any of the criteria for anxiety disorders in any way. But when I was struggling with anxiety, I was diagnosed with panic disorder, with generalized anxiety disorder. I was diagnosed with health anxiety, OCD, and even a little bit of depression. But all of it went away once I understood what was happening, when I knew how to respond, and I focused on long-term freedom. And now looking back, I saw that this whole fear of anxiety being an identity or a handicap was totally flawed. And even though I know this from my own experience with anxiety and helping people around the world, there's such a mainstream approach to anxiety being a chemical imbalance. And this should show you something about not just anxiety, but how information travels across the internet, right? When you're focused on anxiety, you're trying to focus on the solution. So you're on Google trying to figure out why this is happening. And the problem is you don't only get information, but you also get misinformation. And even when information arises that are debunked multiple times, like anxiety being a chemical imbalance, even though they've been debunked, people keep saying it. Because once it becomes in the mainstream, even though it gets disproven, it's very hard for people to forget that. This is a little bit off topic, but when I was a kid, I remember they would tell us that if we swallowed gum, right, like chewing gum, that it would take 7 years for your body to digest it. But that's been disproven multiple times, but people still say it, even though it's not true. And that's the thing about information. Once information is said and it's become mainstream, it's very hard to go backwards. And this is what a lot of anxiety sufferers have to deal with too. Even though they know that recovery is possible, and even they've been able to recover, it's hard to bring these conversations up because you're challenging the mainstream notion so much. And even though the studies show you that a lot of these things aren't true, it's very hard for you who's struggling with anxiety to identify what's true and what's not true. And this is the problem with the internet, right? This is the problem with information. There's nothing inherently wrong with information, but there's a difference between information and knowledge. And that's what makes anxiety recovery so complicated. But I'm telling you, anxiety is very simple. It's focusing on a few principles, unlearning some behaviors and habits that's kept us alive, and then focused on overcoming this. And once you overcome this, you'll see it yourself. You'll see, oh wow, this was never going to be an identity. This was never an issue. I just fell into the cycle because I didn't know what was happening. And I might have had some behavior patterns that may have kept it alive that seemed automatic at the time and seemed like it was helping me get out of the cycle, but it was actually keeping me in the cycle. And then once you overcome this, you'll see for yourself. I really wanted this video to inspire hope for you because look, I help people around the world. And when I tell people I help people with anxiety, most people that I speak with that realize I help people with anxiety, they have a misconception perception about anxiety. They start focusing on, oh, what technique do you use? Oh, okay, like, so are you in the medical world? And it's hard to describe to them. We actually take a different approach. We don't focus on it being a medical issue. But over time, it's so hard to explain that I can't even explain it because there's so much misinformation out there that it's hard to even explain it. And so I just don't even bother with that. So I want you to recognize this information you might be hearing out there. Those are the same things I hear on a daily basis. But time and time again, people are recovering around the world. So if you really want to know how to overcome this, if you really want to focus on the right approach, focus on getting out of this long term and not focus on trying to see different information and seeing which one's right and which one's wrong, because a lot of times they're conflicting. There's a lot of resources for you. The first resource is I have a free ebook down below that explains to you everything that you need to know about the recovery journey. I get messages daily from people that apply those principles alone and they just get to recovery. The second thing I would recommend is check out some recovery stories too. Now, many of these people are the people I helped recover. A lot of these members are also mentors in the mentorship. They're guiding people through recovery. And a lot of these people have just gone back to living and not have anxiety ever be an issue. You will find people that have gone through the exact same thing as you, and they'll tell you what they did to overcome it. And the last resource I'd recommend is if you really want to expedite the process, collapse time, and really have people that know exactly what's happening, guide you through the recovery journey, help you understand the principles and stuff so you can get out of this and go back to living once and for all. You can apply for mentorship down below too. The link is down below. Now, when you hit the link, there's going to be a video really explaining to you how the mentorship works and really helping you understand, is this a right fit for you or not? Once you watch the video and you feel like it's a good fit for you, you'll fill out an application. And after you fill out that application, we'll have a quick chat with you, really help identify what your biggest struggles are, but also, is the mentorship something that can actually help you? If it can, we'll offer you the mentorship. If it doesn't, we'll point you in the right direction. And if the mentorship is the right fit, you can work with me and my team and we'll guide you through the process. We'll make sure you're doing things correctly. We'll focus on long-term freedom and we'll help you focus on the recovery journey until you no longer need us. So the link is down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, it was a little bit more of a contentious video, but if you stuck till this part, I really appreciate it. And again, the link to that article is down below. Check it out. I'll see you in the next one.